good.
You're listening into Radio Dombrowski.
Cool.
All right, so what's on the agenda today?
Should we crack into it?
What do you got for us?
one-
What yarns are we spinning?
Well, before we get into the nitty gritty, bit of a hiatus for the DPP. A few life things have been going on. Ben's shifted islands. No, islands, up island.
To the big smoke.
To the big smoke. Gerard's been building cool shit. I don't know if it's supposed to be on the D-Lo or not. And I've had another kid, so we've been a bit preoccupied, but we're back, better than ever, and with a bit of a new take. We enjoyed our interview series, but we're trying to delve deeper into some design concepts coming up. And first one of the day is something that I've been thinking about. It's kind of been on my mind for a while, and it's a concept that I call the everything house, sort of focusing on materiality.
Watch out.
And it's a design idea where everything in the house is made from one material. So let's take concrete.
What sparked that on for you, Sam?
I think it's a use, like us using SIPs a lot, and it's an incredible, like it's a very wooden interior when it's exposed.
Yeah.
But it's like it's a veneer ultimately, right? Like the actual, like the inside of the wall's not all wood.
It's an ice cream sandwich.
You know, the slab, if it's on a slab, you know, obviously that's not wood. But so I was like, what happens if everything is wood? You know, your framing, your lining, your insulation, your furniture, your
everything?
Your floors, your blankets.
Plumbing, yeah. Why not?
You may as well
could exclude plumbing and electrical. I don't know how the electrical.
I mean, electrical probably not. I think there's some points you're going to have to draw the line. You're not getting a good current through concrete, but
yeah.
I don't know, man. I'm all for an extreme concept and forego the realities.
But I mean, well, that's the thing, right, Gerard? Like, you don't have to. It doesn't necessarily even have to be livable. I mean, I jotted down a couple of examples for you guys to check out. I don't know if you had a look at them at all. Probably the most.
Yeah,
I was going to say the most radical of them is the Robert Bruno house. I don't know if anyone's seen that. I'll put a link to it in the show notes, but that is a proof of concept.
One thing that blew my mind actually when I was doing some research on this is the amount of quite well-renowned architects who have actually attempted this. I guess
really?
Probably like when you are working with a material like concrete, then it's just kind of like makes sense to make it, fully concrete roof, concrete structure. Like Tadao Ando is a great example. So concrete is definitely the obvious choice of material. Also, probably a lot easier to achieve in some of those foreign countries as opposed to New Zealand. I don't know how it would work trying to like meet the New Zealand building code.
Well, I think that's the thing, right? Like this idea is not something that's necessarily going to be even functional, but I think it's just it's a folly concept that would just be really exciting to explore. And that's that Westerpunt by Studio Mata. You know, that's that sort of helixed concrete, like viewing platform is what it kind of is. You know, that's the sort of idea that I'm getting to.
That's
the
entire platform.
thing. Yeah,
it's a viewing platform. It is an epic object.
But that's quite cool because it's concrete, but it's so dynamic and so fluid, and it sort of really belies the nature or the physical nature of concrete because it looks like water.
The gnarliness of that is probably building it in the waves, like it gets lapped by the waves.
Yeah,
which that must have some horrendous foundations.
Yep. But you're right. Going back to the like Tadao Ando concepts and stuff, there's definitely architects there that champion a material, and Kundig's one who springs to mind. Maybe not necessarily like giving himself over to one material in its entirety, but like the honesty of the materials that he uses, like everything is sort of warts and all. It's raw. It's it's sort of in its natural state, which I quite like as well. I feel like there's so much gloss and ornamentation, almost like the disguising of the reality of materials and the stuff that we do, which I find kind of disappointing.
Yeah.
Well, I think he's good at following his aesthetic concept is clearly industrial and pushes it all the way. I think, like, for example, this Robert Bruno house, big steel, sort of animalistic creature thing, from the outside is epic, but on the inside they kind of fall down like looks like laminate flooring in this super industrial steel building, and it's like you're so close. Like
I kind of feel like
you're not quite taking the concept far enough.
Well, I almost think it's kind of post his death. The people that have bought it have tried to turn it into something a bit real, and I think you can stay there now.
Yeah, it's an Airbnb, I think.
Yeah,
by the looks of it.
It's sort of it's kind of sad in a way because it's going against what I think his original concept was, which was for it to be completely steel.
Yeah,
and I really like the story. The sort of in a way the like sustainable nature of it, and the fact that all the steel he used was salvaged, and then he over decades developed it iteratively. Yeah. But he'd like chop bits out and then reuse them somewhere else, and like be like, I want to cut a window here, and then like weld it onto somewhere else, and they'd be like, I don't like that. And I kind of like that ability to meld and sort of like manipulate the material because it is all the same.
Yeah,
you couldn't really do that if there was there was a timber nature there.
If I was to, I would definitely go with timber as a material if I was to attempt this. I think just because it comes in so many, like such a variety of different forms, so you can already have some sort of timber cladding, timber flooring, timber structure.
Is it the potato of building materials?
The potato of building materials. That's brilliant.
Probably is.
That's perfect. You can fries, mash.
Yeah, exactly. It's so good. Boiled, and sustainable, I guess.
Yeah, like
goes in the ground.
Architecture school does that like chair cardboard thing. They should do potatoes. Potato architecture.
Yeah, the timber's cool. And I don't know if you guys ever looked at, and I think it's something that's actually probably been almost proven, particularly in the past. Have you looked at those Norwegians, is it stave or starve churches?
They're the ones that are all black, generally.
Yeah. But they're like timber framed, like timber everything, the timber shingle.
Yeah.
I have a feeling they use like sawdust for insulation or something crazy like that as well. Like the concept of that is pretty cool. Absolute.
Yeah, they're amazing, actually.
Fire death trap.
They look like witch houses.
Yeah, they do look like witch houses. But, I think that
witch hats.
Is the black stained or is it charred? Because, charring is the natural fireproofing.
I think they're pretty old. It's probably just like patina. It might even be like,
just
lichens.
They just haven't washed it.
Yeah. That's what my outdoor furniture looks like.
There's a good history of all timber buildings around the world, like the old Japanese temples and stuff.
Yeah, where they use like timber nails and
just
that sort of stuff. I think that's sort of the level of detail that I'd love to take this concept.
Yeah, all of the joints are kind of like slotted perfectly into position, and it's so satisfying to watch.
It's kind of funny how we have all these initiatives to make buildings reusable and design them so they can come apart, and like people have already mastered it.
It just takes a little bit longer.
Imagine. It's the labor aspect, really, isn't it? And and the craftsmanship. Like, there's no way you're getting a chippy in New Zealand to build.
Not New Zealand, should I?
In a Japanese manner.
Well, I've spent a large period of my life watching Japanese YouTube clips on, timber construction. It's just nothing better than like their chisels and their tools are just all so cool.
As in New Zealand,
they handsaw everything, and it's like, oh my god.
Do you reckon you could build like that?
A lot of it is like patience, and I guess you would probably want to go and learn from one of those masters for a period of time, because there's a lot to it. Like the way that they do their set outs and everything is just phenomenal, really. It's just all completely different, and it's all hand drawn and hand calculated and measured and cut.
It's craftsmanship, really, isn't it?
It's craftsmanship. It's building a bit of joinery. It's far more like joinery than it is construction. So you'd probably want a bit of training. You'd attempt it, and you'd probably pull off something.
I find it interesting that a lot of the newer ones, they still have the same structure, but they're all kind of hidden ultimately by the end of the project. You don't see any of them. Whereas it's kind of interesting to put so much time in care.
Are they still building like that?
You don't see.
Yeah.
What's that?
Are they still building like that?
Yeah, definitely.
Shit, cool.
Yeah, the ones that I like go on the YouTube rabbit holes, it's like literally like they cut the logs down, they select some trees. That's where they start. They start by like cutting down the trees and milling the timber and storing it in the yard for a year, and it's pretty insane.
I mean, that's sustainable, right? That's the true kind of the true description of vernacular.
Yeah,
they're like
use of the immediate.
Their spec home essentially is still like the big 150 by 150 moment frame timber posts everywhere, all slotting, but it's just like CNC'd.
Yeah, it's all done on a grid,
but it's still put together the same way.
Yeah,
which is just epic that they hold on to that rather than doing what the rest of us are doing.
Try and marry up as many foreign materials as humanly possible. I feel like that's the way we build.
It is. And I guess the whole point of it is like, well, the whole point of an everything house would be to expose like the raw structure, and like it tells the story about how it was built and how long it's been there and the man hours it took to kind of assemble, where the material, you can even like kind of understand a lot more about where the materials come from and what it is. And I think so if you're going to, I guess that's what's amazing about those houses is it really does kind of, it's all pretty obvious when you walk in those spaces that you understand exactly how it was built and designed and everything.
I think it's the honesty, raw. Right? It's the honesty of the building. I feel like so much. Well, it's interesting. I saw a comment about sort of something about materiality and is it something that we as architects or designers really consider? And I think that it is. I mean, it's a pretty common buzz term that we use all the time, and I think we really do think about materiality when we're designing. But is it something that users appreciate and interact on a similar level? I don't think so. I don't think that they go and look at that Westerpunt, look out and go, holy shit, this whole thing's made out of concrete. It's like cantilevering on this like helixed form. How did they form this out of concrete? Like they're not really looking at it that way. But back to your point, Ben, if something's really pushed, like if they are experiencing an everything house, then they have no choice but to appreciate and interact with it. And I think that's quite a nice way of getting like users and the consumers of buildings to kind of appreciate materiality a bit more.
Yeah, so exposing the materials as opposed to covering them up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Architecture is so often peripheral, like by design is something that's in the back of your mind. And it has to be pretty gnarly to come front of mind.
Yeah, it has to punch you in the face a little bit to for you to take note as like not a common, not a casual sort of appreciator. I mean, I'd say that a lot of listeners and us all as architects, I distinctly remember when we were at architecture school as well, you walk around with your head in the sky because you're just looking up at buildings all the time. Most people don't do that. But, if something really is quite sensational or spectacular or interesting, then it draws in the general public. You're not going to have somebody come into a spec house in New Zealand and go, "Oh wow, look at this beautiful
this
use
whole
of
house is made of
plasterboard."
chipboard. That's crazy. I've never seen it before.
Yeah, that beautiful chipboard.
What a unique use of chipboard.
No one has ever said that. That's so funny.
Could you do a plasterboard house?
Yeah, I guess if you laminated enough plasterboard together, it would become...
It just melt in the rain.
I mean, hey, if you can do a cardboard cathedral, you can do a plasterboard house, surely.
Yeah, that's a really good proof. That's a really good kind of everything material. Is Shigeru Ban's use of cardboard.
Yeah, that's a guy who knows how to run a concept.
Yeah.
Often running a concept.
He just scales up his models out.
And you have to pull everything back to make sure you follow that. The issue is when you start cutting corners and letting other materials come in.
Yeah.
So the Ice Hotel is probably a really blatant example of a successful single material project.
Yep. Because in that, all the beds, all the furniture, everything's carved out of ice, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which cold sleep, but
people go from lots of places over the world to stay in one of those, don't they?
How long do they last?
I don't know. A couple of months. The heart of winter.
What about a tree? I guess a tree. There's a lot of tree hut architecture on Airbnb and that sort of thing.
Yeah. People respond well to novelties, I think. Well, maybe we just, as humans, need novelty to
more novelty architecture.
Cut through.
I think it's because everything else is so benign, right?
Yeah, and so few people are willing to follow a concept to the degree that it is required to make something really impactful.
What we should be doing is, one way to design like this would be to probably do what Shigeru Ban does and make a physical model of your, whatever it is, cathedral or house or whatever, and literally just scale it up.
Scale it up, yeah.
And just be like, nope, I'm using the same material and everything.
Yeah, shit, yeah. I mean, I used heaps of plaster when I was at uni for modelling. I don't anymore. But
that's your
cool.
gym house.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's the plasterboard house. I've already done it. Nice.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's a good way to use the inherent qualities of a material. Like if you a ceramic house, you're probably going to need some archways and shit going on.
Yeah. Understanding the limitations of your medium. Yeah, that's quite interesting. I was just going to say, Gerard, for you, particularly with all your steel work, you'd have a far better relationship or understanding of that than we probably do. How does that sort of transform into your art and your sculpture making and stuff?
Well, a lot of my stuff's designed around the process of making it. So I don't hydroform things. You set your parameters and then you hydroform and you kind of get what you're given.
Right.
Which to me is the beauty of the process.
Are you ever going to attempt a hydroformed house? That would be pretty epic.
Yeah. I've been trying to weigh it up whether I make a little hydroformed office, a little studio, like a backyard office. If anybody out there wants a hydroformed office, let me go.
I do, obviously.
Yeah. But I just want to hydroform. I was thinking just start off small, but it's still a fuckload of water. Size of the bed of my ute is something like 2.4 by 1.8. But then just a comically house-like shape, the gable and a door and a window.
Traditional, kids drawing.
Yeah, kids drawing, but then you fill it up with water and fatten it out.
Or, and just hear me out, you literally go and buy a bouncy castle and you just pull it apart so you can use that as your template. And then just wow that all together and blow that up.
A stainless steel bouncy castle would be pretty epic.
Does it only work with stainless?
Nah, I've just been starting to use stainless a lot. Just it's kind of nice to work with.
Can you weld stainless as good?
Yeah.
I mean, you personally. No, just kidding.
Can you weld stainless?
I've welded twice before.
I like working with stainless. Like the color feedback is quite nice. Like you can tell if your welds are going good on how colorful your weld is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, like you said before, like architects generally have an idea of materiality, but maybe sometimes we apply materials to a face versus like using the inherent qualities of a material to make the wall, and then I don't know, what's left is the outcome. Like a log cabin, perhaps, is like a crude example.
Yeah,
it's so true. I'd say that 99% of what we do, and you know, to your point, is essentially like facadism.
Yeah, we're decorating cakes to a large degree.
Totally. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just quite seduced by the process-based outcomes. So the more I can, you can kind of trick yourself into unknown outcomes that way as well.
But how? So what's the design process other than like hydroforming? I kind of get, but what are some other ways you can achieve that design, that unknown design process?
Melting stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
Like melting plastics or even melting metals. Let it cool around a form. I don't know, like.
But like, you're not going to do that on a house-size scale. Well, you know, maybe.
But could you?
But could you? But if not, then why not? Why not on an elemental scale? You know, like you could do that for furniture to begin with. You know, start small, and then you could start to move it up to, okay, can we do like building elements as part of it, or you know, does it become part of like generation of form? You know what I mean? Like, I think that's quite an interesting way of looking at it. You know, it's like, I guess it's a matter of probably changing the state of material, right? You know, because the majority of stuff that we deal with is solid, and in its solid state, it's rather limiting. But it's a matter of trying to take it to a more liquid, or I don't know, even can you turn something into a gas that then generates form? I don't know. You know, like I think it's changing the actual like natural state of it to generate something new, but it's still like it's the process, but it's still super honest, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, there's like those dome projects where they inflate like a bubble, like a canvas, and then pour concrete over it with rebar.
There you go. That's gas. That's gas inspired.
There's who was it? Not one of them. Maybe I can't remember. Renzo Piano. I can't remember, but how they basically like made that log cabin and then formed the concrete around it, then burnt the timber.
Oh, cool.
Oh, Zumthor's chapel.
No, Zumthor. I actually visited in Germany once. It's pretty epic.
Like stuff like that is just so processed. Like that's I think what interests me a shite load.
Yeah,
that Zumthor one's pretty cool because it's sort of like it's the everything house like times two. You know, it's been completely built out of timber.
Yeah,
and then completely built out of concrete, but it's the same building, but it's two very different. It would have been quite interesting to have had the timber form sort of there for, let's say, a decade, and the experience that people kind of have in using that for that period of time. And then all of a sudden he's like, I'm going to encase it in concrete, burn it. And then it's the same building, but it's a completely different experience. It's a completely different internal environment, you know, like that's quite a cool concept.
There's something interesting there about like a really long time frame. So like, I don't know, you're pouring in a meter of concrete a year or something into like something that fills up.
Or like building a house out of...
House is more of the construction of it's more of like a drawn out spectacle.
Yeah.
That probably
like even using like
sculpture or...
Not, is it topiary? You know, like growing trees, you know, you can grow trees to sort of like bend in around things. controlling the growth of a tree to create form, or something like that. It's quite cool.
There's a pleached cathedral somewhere in the world I've seen pictures of.
What's it called, Gerard? Pleaching, is that the method?
Yeah, so you just train them to grow in certain ways. Like you can pleach chairs and stuff. Like if you just grow a tree and then bend it.
Pleached
building. Google that shit.
I want to find this now.
There's another epic process one I remember on Arc Daily back in the day. They had another little like single room, but it was like straw bales stacked on top of each other. Then they encased it in concrete, and then let the cows just eat the straw out.
Oh, really nice.
Yeah, it's quite like a beautiful, messy form. I think with like a real sharp window face.
Yeah, that's quite cool.
And then we've got old Ishigami's restaurant house.
Ishigami's, I was going to say that before, where dig holes, and fill that full of concrete. I guess the common theme is just using either the material or the negative, or using the actual negative.
The inverse.
The inverse, yeah. So
I'm going to start experimenting with like steel as concrete formwork.
Oh, yeah.
Just got a chair, sort of like a stool commission at the moment. So just like maybe just playing with the thickness of your steel to see how much natural, I guess it's hydroforming, but with concrete.
Right. And so is the final product going to be concrete, but you kind of can't, you're not really controlling how precise it would be.
Nah.
Is that the idea?
I guess be like a box frame, and then like you pick the thickness of the steel as to how, and then the weight of the concrete, how much that would bow out. I think
but wouldn't you better
long time ago with like a very subtle movement in his molds.
Yeah.
Would you hydroform it first and then fill it full of concrete?
What's that?
You could hydroform it first if you wanted even more bulge.
Yeah, like in theory, yes, but like I'm probably more interested in like the story of the process.
Yeah,
and I like your idea of subtlety there as well, Gerard. I think like everything we've sort of talked to so far, all of the solutions, all of the results of these processes will be quite abrupt. But something like that, you kind of know that it's not the natural way that material is supposed to be, but you're not quite sure why,
Yeah.
I like that. I like that nature of subtlety to it.
I don't know. I'm on the fence about that one. I'd need to be proven that. I guess the subtlety, if done poorly, could just look like a mistake.
Yeah.
Potentially you need the concept.
Like someone's boxing wasn't built properly and blew out a little bit in this corner.
100% the risk.
Had a few of those before.
They're never mistakes. They're never mistakes. They're just design iterations. Experimentation.
Yeah. How much shit have people passed off as like intentional when it's been just a giant mistake?
Isn't that what we do as a profession? Post-rationalization.
Yeah, it's like, oh shit, I forgot to tell you a door. Oh no, it's about enclosure.
It's tough life decorating cakes.
I forgot to give you a window. Oh no, this room's the cave. It's the narrative of the space.
This is your gimp den.
But it's on the top floor.
I'm sure that was in the brief. No? Oh, my bad.
Genius. They don't go super hard on the single material, but the Tree Hotel somewhere in Scandinavia where they have just a bunch of real elaborate I guess hotel structures floating around in the bush. Trees. There's like a mirror one, which is like just a mirror cube on a single tree.
Oh, yep.
I know the one. That's pretty cool.
It's like full mirror outside, full timber inside, and then you sort of see the trunk coming through the space.
I'd say one material we haven't discussed, which I think has a lot of potential, is bamboo as well for that everything use.
I knew you were going to bring up bamboo, the bamboo man.
Come on.
I thought you were going
it's good. Yeah, it has to be done.
I mean, like,
awesome.
In theory, that's what my thesis was. Well, that's what it started.
Yeah.
The concept started around that, and then sort of it evolved out a little bit. But then I designed that house in Nepal, which was all bamboo, sans the concrete footings, and which was pretty. I guess that was a proof of concept. Like all the windows, doors, the furniture, structure, everything was all bamboo pins. The only thing
bamboo plumbing
material, isn't it?
Bamboo plumbing, yeah. The only thing wasn't was electrical. You can't run a volt. You can't run a charge through bamboo unless someone knows how to.
You'll crack that code. Maybe you run it through your pipe.
What was that?
You run it through your pipes?
Yeah, you could do.
Yeah, water conducting.
Yeah, exactly. Water conducting.
I've cracked it.
That's another one. But one thing that we haven't talked about is maybe shifting from that idea of maybe material so much, but still in that vein of the everything house. Ben, you've got a note here on colour.
Well, yeah, the all one colour house. This reminds me of a Gerard Dombrowski attempted this once, didn't you, Gerard? How'd that work out?
Well, I moved jobs halfway through that project, so I wasn't there to drive the train.
What colour were you going for, Gerard?
Full yellow. It was a yellow.
You're in yellow?
But everything being yellow.
So
it's pretty epic.
I'd love that.
The problem that the thing that happened was just finding a urine yellow toilet was just too.
Wait. Did you say urine yellow?
Was that the kind of urine yellow? No. Well, yes, it was. Yeah, it had like yellow tiles, yellow floor tiles, yellow everything.
A little bit softer than yellow safe
room.
Oh yeah, nice. I mean, I think that's a great concept, and maybe not. Maybe it's not done to that extreme, but have you seen that project, that 7 Colourful Little Houses project in Christchurch?
Is that a
recently completed one? I mean, that's sort of that ilk. And
yes,
the designs are all exactly the same. I think they maybe pivoted about 90 degrees.
Yeah.
To site, but like the only thing that differentiates them is the color. But they've been true to the color selection, so the entire facade or the entire exterior is one color, and then that's brought through into the interior. I think in the kitchen and in the joinery, and I really like that because what they've taken is something that could be incredibly benign. It's very much a spec house, but with just one kind of like
color.
one design decision.
They've
made it such a successful project, and so
it looks like it was well executed as well. I think it's because it's like quite well designed, and they've used quite good products internally. So I think they've pulled it off really well.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's really cool. Also, good color selections. I think you could put it could be less successful if you're a bit too garish.
The firm
with your colour choice.
MVRDV, the Dutch office.
Yeah.
They are surely the kings of colour. Lots of like massive monotone projects. Just massive colour blocking entire buildings.
And I like that because I think we shy, particularly in New Zealand, just getting back from Central Otago, like there is no the blandest colour palette. Blandest colour palette in the world.
That's all so similar.
I mean, we're so terrified of the use of colour here. It's it's shocking. I mean, we've talked about it several times on the podcast, but I think it's because in general we're pretty plain and boring.
Isn't it crazy that all it takes is like a building to be one full colour for it to stand out? Like, how is that a thing? That's crazy.
But it's also commitment to the bit. And I think this is the same with the everything house in terms of materiality as well. You can't half-ass a concept like this. Like you can't go, I'm going to do an everything house out of timber, but there's going to be like, elements of other materials. It's just not going to work. Like if you want this to be truly successful, and it's exactly the same with color, is commit wholeheartedly. Like if you're like, I want a splash of color, then all you're doing is you've got like a feature wall or some bullshit. Like what you really need is like full commitment, like Gerard, like your full piss yellow house.
You're in yellow. You're in yellow.
Sorry.
We had yellow perspex light up ceiling as well. That was,
yeah.
Did that go in?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
All right, at least that got done.
Did this get built?
Yeah, it got built. Yeah, we built it. That's why I know about it. Because I built the thing.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
The kitchen joinery unit was pretty epic. It was like particle board joinery, and then the idea was you go inside the joinery, and then it's like the womb, like entirely yellow mass. Then I went and started my brain rehab center. It's convicts.
Wow. The toilet got cold, unfortunately.
I was going to say, did they commit 100%, or were there aspects of Too Hard Basket?
The toilet.
Was that
there's always ways around these things. Like if you did like
we were going to paint it. We were going to paint it. But Gerard did leave.
Like a resin Uracryl will last a long time on that.
Yeah.
But you could also like refire it. You could glaze it.
Yeah.
But all of these things like require you to go a little bit further, or quite a bit further, to like reglaze a whole toilet.
Another option is coming back to our sort of, things generating over time. You could just never clean it.
Yeah, exactly. It's probably yellow now.
let it naturally patina.
You're not wrong.
That was the idea, right?
Yeah. And they wanted to get all like the taps sandblasted and repowder coated. Oh, would have been amazing. Maybe
you just got to do it again. Try and pull it off.
It's fine. I mean, awesome clients that were willing to commit to that. I think it's the hardest thing is finding people. And Gerard, you're talking about doing hydroforming a studio. I mean, you can do that because you can kind of do it for yourself, but like it's finding someone that's as committed to the bit or as committed to the concept as you is the tricky part, right?
Yeah, you do need brave people, and those guys were brave.
Yeah,
so
nice.
The stars do need to align sometimes, but it goes both ways, doesn't it? Like you have to exude confidence for the bit.
Oh, absolutely.
It's got to be believable. If you're half-assing your side, then there's no way you're ever going to sell the idea.
And I think that's the hard part as designers, in particular in New Zealand, is we're sort of ultimately pigeonholed, into a lane, whether that be by the people that we work for or the clients that we have or the design guidelines or, covenants or anything like that. There's definitely scope. Like you definitely can push it and you can do this crazy shit. But I think like too often we don't think that way because, the benign is so prevalent.
I personally think that I just struggle to think that way. And so like coming up with the actual concepts is the hardest part. I guess and it takes a while to like, Gerard, you're just amazing at it. You've got like I want to push it to the extreme. Let's test this. And then all of a sudden after, a small period of time, you've got this concept that's kind of like exploring your ideas, this is something we've talked about numerous times before in the pod, but actually like coming to those conclusions, like I'm constantly ask myself, what do I want to test? Like, what is it I want to test? So coming to answering those questions and coming to those conclusions is probably the hardest part.
Yeah. I think it is a muscle, like all design thinking, I think is a muscle. The more I've actively tried to trick myself into coming up with weird ideas constantly for years.
Yeah, I think you're well trained at it. But I also think back to your point, Ben, and I've struggled with this as well, is you want to come up with ideas, but I often find you sort of limit yourself because you're not confident enough to just go, oh, fuck it, I'm just going to do it. Whereas like Gerard, I think like you're a little bit more, I'll just do it and I'll just test it out.
Yeah.
Like you're probably less, correct me if I'm wrong, but I kind of feel like you're maybe less afraid of the concept failing. then I think maybe I am, and maybe you are, Ben.
Well, I think like the building side, maybe I'm just a little bit too practical sometimes. So I'm always thinking about like the best way to build something.
Yeah,
and
don't do that.
and that best way to build something is always like comes back to what you can actually get built in this country based on my current knowledge. So I don't actually, other than like different ways to put something together, it always sits within the same kind of parameter. Whereas Gerard's just like, oh, let's just give something completely different to go, which I think is epic and need to learn.
Yeah. Still got to get shit built though, don't we?
It's all about the making of the models. It all comes back to those models.
The making part is architecture to me. Like, I don't know, everyone can have mean ideas, but if you can't get it built, it's like, how much is that render worth?
Yeah, well, that's it, right? Like paper architecture. I mean, to be fair, there's very much a realm of architecture that is purely paper. You know, there's some people that have kind of pegged their entire career on paper architecture, but realizing it, I think, is the true success of an architectural concept.
Yeah, like old Zaha, I guess. 10 years of drawings.
Yeah.
But if your old man runs an oil company, it's probably...
You got a bit of financial backing.
Financial backing is real
Bjarga
thing,
was like that. Years and years of competition entries and concepts and just ideas, but full confidence in those ideas.
Yeah.
You know, full confidence and belief in your ability, and it pays off. But I think it takes a special person to kind of,
the vision.
You know, not negatively, but carry an ego for that long without like an actual success or without an actual result. I reckon it's pretty hard.
Yeah, I remember a painting friend saying that persistence will always win. And that they can't get rid of us if they tried. We're weeds.
I don't know. Sometimes it feels like it's just going to be easier to own the oil company and build your own architecture.
Yeah, hindsight, definitely probably the easier way to go about things.
That's one option.
Yeah. All right, let's start drilling.
Yeah.
Where's your property?
Start digging for gold.
Can we do an oil house?
Let's open up those old quarries.
Can we? Because lots of stuff derived from oil. I mean, how far can you stretch this concept?
Yeah, wow. Rammed earth, right? Do a rammed earth house somehow. Good at insulation values as well.
Yeah, the old straw bale, lime, or just a very earth house, you know. Like lots of people go down the I guess earth ship. That one uses.
That's a whole movement, right? You know, like that's a whole proven thing.
So there's everyone, I guess, angle towards these things, but then at some point they might drift away.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the reason that you drift away is back to what you were saying, Ben, is reality has to come into it a little bit, you know, and that's, you know, back to that, you know, you kind of drift away from your idea because you're like, I actually have to build this thing or I have to make it real or something. And that's why I like that Robert Bruno house, because I don't think he ever cared about it being functional or even like a real realization. He just kept welding shit on top of other stuff until he came up with a form. You know,
it's amazing how consistent the aesthetic is. Like for such a large structure, like right down to the smaller details, handrails and like window mullions.
Yeah,
like all the lines. Exactly the same as if you saw the building from 100 meters away. Yeah,
seeing it from 100 meters versus seeing it from like a meter, it's the same form. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, like the design language is super consistent.
Yeah, I like that.
It's just how these new owners in there overlay flooring.
How can we get someone to pay us to build, or at least pay for the building of like a pavilion or something, so we can actually like experiment with some of these ideas? The the everything house, the all one material and all the same color.
I mean, the Brick Bay Follies sort of like that in a way, isn't it? It's sort of a mechanism to
True.
To test things out and to do something.
Yeah.
Do something.
It's going to be
cool. Should we
enter
one?
They all started to look the same.
Yeah, it would be cool if there was more. I mean, but I guess there's the risk of it becoming too sculptural, though. At what point is it a sculpture and is it architecture? Huh? Well, but but you know what I mean. Like, not to say that sculpture can't be architecture, but is it just a form that's not necessarily habitable? Like, or how do you? I mean, this is a conversation definitely for another time. Like, where do you draw the line at sculpture at sculpture versus architecture?
What is habitable? Can you crawl through your hallway?
Yeah. Your giant stick man. Can you crawl through those?
Do you have to stand upright through a room?
Definitely not.
Well,
sleeping pod.
I grew up in a bedroom that I couldn't stand up in. It was great.
Yeah, I guess lots of people have like their little loft, tiny house loft. Not standing up in that.
This is a good segue actually for. Are we going to test our new little segment? Hate it or love it?
Yeah.
All right. Well, if anyone else, I don't know if you guys have got any ideas, but I was thinking that similar to the sculpture, I hate it or love it. The decorative architectural elements. Is that a hate or a love? I mean, like looking around.
Are we talking classical
at the moment? Yeah, but it doesn't need to be classical. It can be like a modern interpretation.
Like gargoyles.
There's just no decorative elements in buildings these days.
Yeah, right? I think it's really sad. I'm all for the
hate
decorative.
It. Do we hate decorative elements now? Or?
Well, I think people have been taught to hate. Well, architects particularly have been taught by universities to modernist is the direction, whereas
we were literally just talking about exposing the structure, and it's hard to backtrack.
Yeah. I am actually all for like complexity, like Thomas Heatherwick's book where he's yarning about general people respond better to like older buildings that have like rhythm and
ornamentation and
that comes with like super intricate stone relief.
Do you think that's because it's easier to appreciate like the craftsmanship and the workmanship?
No, I think they're like digestible, like the sheer rhythm, but then the complexity like is like just a nice thing to look at. Like your brain needs an element of complexity to like focus in on, whereas a purely glass box is, might have some fancy detailing, but nobody can see it.
Yeah, right.
So I think
we're really talking about, when you say decorative elements, it's ornamentation.
It's ornamentation.
Yeah,
it is. And there's some amazing examples of exactly what Gerard was talking about, where it is more of an intricate, a sculptural, whatever decorative element, but it's also like a part of the structure itself. So you can kind of combine those two things. I guess like steel's probably, and even timber, if done well, is amazing at that sort of has that natural beauty. But it feels like it's like a bit of a lost art that back in the day, it was just the norm. So everyone had it everywhere, even like the old school villas, and now it's just not even a part of the process. So no one is willing to pay for it.
Interestingly, I think though, if, when we're thinking of like hot or not, love it or hate it, I would hate ornamentation on modern day architecture though, because it would feel too forced.
But would the architecture be different if it had ornamentation? It'd be designed.
It could have been if we'd thought about this, generations ago. But if we're thinking about like implementing this now, or how could this evolve moving forward, your entire architectural style would need to change to support it, because I think everything now is designed to look so simple and basic that to design that out, you'd have to completely like come up with a new design language. You know what I mean? It's not like you're coming around and throwing up Corinthian columns everywhere.
No. Well, That'd be nice.
Well,
That'd be cool. Yeah.
I wish I was.
I guess like
Bring back the
postmodern was like
golem.
a literal reusing of some of those objects, but there's a middle ground where you can reference these shapes and forms, but
postmodernism looked at it on a more of a building scale rather than a elemental ornamentation type scale, really, didn't it? I mean, like Art Nouveau would be a good description of like pure ornamentation.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Art Nouveau is probably an example of something that, in my mind, still holds a lot of weight, and you could run that aesthetic now, and it would be just as awesome. Like,
yeah,
who's bold enough to?
I'll give it a crack, mate.
Nick Scaldi.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah.
My example of like modern ornamentation, I guess, is maybe just in people's use of brick, which you see a lot in Australia, like Mel Bright and John Wardle, like all using quite more complex
different
brick
textures.
layouts. Like John Wardle did a proposal, was it for the World Expo, or I remember his lecture a while ago, but super complex cast bricks and then just repeating that mold over and over again. So it's still making a brick in the same way, you're just sending them some molds.
Yeah.
Well, another example,
a super complex, but it's quite readable because it's over like a whole face. So it brings that, I guess, modernist aesthetic, but bringing some real gnarly complexity.
Yeah. Another example I was thinking of is actually another one from you, Gerard, this project that we're working on together at the moment. And we had a huge discussion. I was totally against these steel eyelids that you really wanted to put on. And I was like, there's no way. There's no way we're putting these eyelids on. They're basically like curved steel with, like, you know, a little bit of, well, I wouldn't say call them complex, but a nice rhythm. And I was against it. And then Gerard's like, nah, let me model it. Let me put it on there. And now I'm like, I can't see the building without it. It's just
so
like,
what was
become such an intricate part.
Back to the loving and hating ornamentation, what was your aversion to it? Like, why did you dislike it to begin with?
Because the parts where the eyelids are, the actual building itself is set back quite a bit, and I just wanted it to disappear. But Gerard wanted it to read as one full object, and so hence the eyelids. And now that the eyelids are on there, 100% agree. So I don't know. That's just another example. I'm actually have been not into any kind of decorative architecture pretty much my whole career.
Until now.
And becoming more, and becoming more and more. I just think like there's it's a bit of a lost beauty. And I don't know, I see my neighbor out there spending a week painting his nice picket fence. I'm like, okay, well, look, you know, if there's a bit more, you know, beauty and you're a bit more proud of your buildings, then maybe you'd spend a bit more time looking after it as well. I don't know.
So I think for me, like, I appreciate ornamentation in its context and history, but I don't, unless it's done incredibly well, I don't really like it now. Like, I don't like eaves. I find eaves too much ornamentation.
Yeah, I didn't like eaves, but eaves are definitely back in for me. That's a good one, actually. We'll bring that on up.
I love a really big eave.
Yeah, I love a big eave. Frank Lloyd
I
Wright.
think if I like any medium-sized eaves, but I really like no eave or a really big eave.
All right,
but have you owned a house? Yeah. Have you owned a house without an eave? It kind of scares me. My last house had no eaves, and I was like, it's impervious. It's impervious. Yeah. But when you get really bad rain, there's just something like a little bit satisfying about a roof that actually just kicks the water right off your walls.
You're just being a pussy.
It'll probably last an extra 50 years. So I don't know. We've got two now. We've got two hated or loves it. All right, where do we stand on decorations? I am pro. And Sam's no.
I'm no, yeah.
You've lost this round, Sam. Better luck next time.
Well, yeah, you are the weakest link.
All right.
Okay, wait.
And as your punishment,
Eves.
you have to put
Eves.
ornamentation in your next project.
All right. And then hate it or love it, Eves.
Eves somehow slipped in there. Needs more discussion, but
more
pro
for.
Eves.
Pro, I'm anti as well. So that's I'm 0-2. Damn. It'd be boring if we agreed on all of these.
Nah, it's great.
Just to dig into the eaves quickly, I think eaves without spouting is awesome. Like if you deal with your rainwater at the ground, like a gravel trap or something. Zumthal's Serpentine, the photos of it in the rain, where it's like this like square waterfall where it's like all buckling down. It's just moody. You wouldn't want it somewhere where you're walking under, but the vibes. It's like a fireplace.
Nice.
Nice. Oh well, that's good
right,
pod.
Boys. Yeah,
and looking
chat.
forward to hearing some results about what the audience thinks are pro decorations or pro eaves.
Hate it.
We'll find out. All right. Is that the pod?
Catch you next time.
Ka-chow.